Okay, so Catholics structure their church different than we structure their church. Why do they do that? Which one's better?
All right. So they structure their church
Yeah.
differently than the way we structure our
The
churches.
difference than other churches.
Yeah, sure.
Theirs is theirs and ours is different.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. And so, yeah, they obviously have their way of structuring their church that they believe is both biblical and tradition, right? Like this
Okay.
has been the tradition that's been passed down to us. We continue in this. And I think the Protestant church, probably it's one of the things the Catholics can be like, well, we have this sorted out, right? Like we have Pope,
Right.
we have cardinals, we have archbishops, we have bishops, we have priests. Like there's a very clear distinction and roles of responsibilities and those kind of things. I think in Protestant churches, man, we're all over the map with this thing.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got some churches that are led by elders, some churches that are led by deacons, some churches that are just led by a singular pastor, some churches that are led by a board of directors, some churches that are led by a group of committees or like one singular committee that's above all the other committees. And so I think all of this is just kind of, yeah, it can be messy.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in the Protestant denominations, their structure, like for example,
Yeah.
in the Methodist Church, you've got your bishops and your district superintendents. And so there is and then the pastors, and then you've got, or who are also called elders. So you've got the bishops, the district superintendents, elders, and you got deacons.
Mm-hmm.
So in that denomination setting, you've got it's structured, it's set. And then you see the same thing in other Protestant denominations. It's when you get into like the independent or the non-denominational, you know, it's all over the map.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I actually recently just taught on elders at our church and why elders are biblical and why elders are given the spiritual authority they're given.
Mm-hmm.
And that why having healthy spiritual leadership is actually good. And so what that looks like with what I call a plurality of elders. And so, like, you know, I am looking back at Bible and I'm going, this is the way I see Scripture.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm interpreting it that way. There's a plurality of elders that are in every local church, and every local church is independent. They're locally autonomous in the sense of they're determining their own, you know, way of leading worship, their own way of preaching or whatever. They're not beheld to another church above them,
Right.
dictating to them what it should look like, right? Like you go to a Catholic church, for example, and if I go from one Catholic church to another Catholic church, it's going to look really similar.
See, that's appealing.
Because they're all following the same but the same liturgy.
Right.
You know, and if they're following the church calendar, you're even going to hear them preach on the same exact passage of Scripture.
Oh.
You know, and now obviously the sermons are going to be different depending on the priest, but they're going to be using the same passage of Scripture. They're going to be going through the church calendar in the same pace, in the same manner. But you'll see this again, and like I bring up the Anglican world just because I got a good friend who's an Anglican, but they're pretty similar to that, right? They have their calendar they use. They have they're going through the church calendar every year, and so
I kind of like that.
Yeah,
like if you moved, you would just go to the closest one.
Correct.
That'd be, instead of going to 40 different Protestant places
and trying
looking
to figure
for
out
one that has sort of the same theology as you.
Right. No, yeah. If you're, and
that's
so,
super appealing.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean,
yeah. And now
it's like getting a Big Mac. It's the same everywhere.
It is true.
Yeah.
It is true. And it's like, and then, I mean, you do have like the variations in that, like where you've got some contemporary Catholics services, some charismatic Catholic services. And the same thing in the Anglican world, you're going to have some Anglican, like contemporary services or blended services. Some are going to be really what they call high church, where it's like all liturgy, all hymns. You have others that are blended with contemporary music, others that are charismatic in nature. So you do have that, but mostly they're going to be using the same liturgical scripts even if the music style is different.
Okay.
And then they'll be using, again, the same church calendar, and so there's
everything's still about the
readings,
Eucharist.
and it's all leading up to the Eucharist.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think when you ask, like, why are they different? It's just the way that, again, the Catholics, they had their traditions kind of set up, and then when the Protestant Reformation happened, it was like, well, where do we go from here? Like,
right.
How do we figure? And then as the different denominations
I
started,
didn't think about this.
Yeah, after all the different denominations started happening, it was like, how do we set up a structure?
Okay.
You know, and then of course now we're to the point of independent churches and all that kind of stuff, and non-denominational, so they're not connected to any other church or into any specific liturgy.
Okay.
So
are there Catholic churches that are more specialer than other churches?
Are there Catholic churches that are more specialer? No.
You know what I mean? Like are there any Catholic churches that are better ones, like higher up the chain? Than regular Catholic churches?
Yeah, I mean, like, no, not. I mean, obviously, you've got like some historic Catholic churches that have just been around forever, so they're historic in nature, but not just like better.
It's still the same thing.
It's still the same thing.
It's just a really old church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, and there's some churches that like mean a lot to Catholics because of, again, how old they are, or where they're located.
So it'd be cool as a Catholic to go to mass.
It's like they have some significance to the Catholic Church.
Does it matter if I go to a different one? Like if I went to a different one as a Catholic, how would they know that I did all the right Catholic stuff? Do I get like a card?
Oh, you mean like if you were just like randomly on one Sunday going to another Catholic church?
Yeah. How would they know that I've done all the right stuff?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I guess you just have to be honest about that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you could.
There'd be the expectation that you'd be part of a local body.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And that's part of the universal aspect of it too, right?
Yeah.
It's because whether I'm in this one or whether I go into this one, I'm still part of that Catholic church.
I could be on vacation.
100%.
And just know exactly where to go.
Yep.
And get the same exact thing.
Yeah, or a similar thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, if we're talking just the structure of things, here's the thing, I guess. Every church is going to have their structure.
Okay. And
whether
that's just theirs.
Whether it's denominations, whether it's independent churches, networks of churches, they're all going to have their own structures. And as long as they can say, this is where we derived it from biblically, I'm good.
Okay.
It's the well, this is the way we've always done it. I don't like that argument.
Okay.
And if they're not being led by elders or pastors, like, I'm like, where did you find that in Scripture?
Okay.
I would argue with that. But
your problem is the power that they have given themselves under Jesus in that position.
Yeah, my issue, a lot of it, to be honest with you, is the claim of exclusivity. Is the claim that only that there's an apostolic succession that only our Pope is connected to, right?
Right.
And that we are the one true church.
Okay.
There is problems that I have with that. Because again, as we talked about last time, and I'm not going to rehash it.
It's not necessarily the actual structure of it.
No, because again, I think every church or denomination is going to develop a structure.
Okay.
For me, it's the going back to saying, no, this is the one individual who is the leader of the church universal and is infallible when he speaks on morals and faith.
Okay.
And I simply do not believe that you can trace a succession back for just that one guy all the way back to Peter.
Okay.
Yeah. I just fundamentally disagree with that. And I'm not going to go into what we talked about last week, right? You can go listen to that episode.
Yeah.
So for me, it's, I would prefer like what we had early on in the early church, where there was a council of leaders who all came together and made decisions, not one singular person.
Okay.
And especially not one person who
could just say anything,
who has
and
been
it's
granted,
right.
who has been granted a sense of infallibility.
And that's what they do today. That's what the Pope does today.
Mm-hmm.
He just says stuff, and everyone has to.
Well, it's weird because he can speak. Kind of the phrase is from the chair of Peter. He can speak from the chair of Peter. And that's infallible in terms of morals and faith. But the issue, or not the issue, but the reality is I don't think anyone's Pope has actually done that in a really long time.
Oh, said anything that was supposed to be infallible.
Right.
Okay.
You're talking about 100 plus years ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so
they're not using their power.
No.
Wow. How
No.
nice. How benign.
Yeah. Well, I killed for this one. Maybe even the Protestant Reformation helped with that.
Oh, with them realizing that they can't be all good and stuff.
Well, realizing that
what they say isn't.
Realizing that we need to be careful about how we're allowing the Pope to speak for behalf of all of the church.
Oh.
Now I'm going to get killed for this because they would vehemently disagree with me on this.
Cool.
But
it's like you and I are in a battle right now to see who can get killed first.
And so, but my heart behind that is I think there was a recognition, whether they hate Luther or not, I think there became a recognition of some things had to get cleaned up. The whole point of the Council of Trent was kind of which followed the Reformation for the Catholic Church, the Council of Trent. It was like a counter to the Reformation. And so whether they like Luther.
Wait, what was the Reformation?
So I'm sorry. The Reformation was Luther.
Oh,
and the leading to the Protestant Church, right? But out of that came the Council of Trent, where it was kind of like a reaction to the Reformation.
Okay.
And I think all I'm saying is there was good that came out of the Protestant Reformation because it did make the Catholic Church go, okay, we've got to clean up some things.
Okay.
And we've got to articulate some things better. And they did that. Now, do I disagree on doctrinal things that they stand on? Yeah, I do. But as far as the structure of things, I'm okay with the general structure. Again, just not the Pope as a singular voice and definitely not as the voice of Christ.
Okay.
And then I definitely don't believe they're just the one true church.
So is the Pope more of like a ceremonial thing?
At this juncture?
Yeah.
No, I mean, he's
still, the King of England.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, he's still seen obviously as this, spiritual head and everything. But yeah, I think just, and as the world has kind of moved, right? Like we talked about last time, with just how much not only church authority but just political power the popes had.
Right.
That has been, considerably diminished. And so I think that plays a part of it too.
Okay.
Yeah.